Good morning everyone, welcome to the Colour Cave. I'm Jem and I like to play with art supplies. Today I am going to be tackling the February. Today I'm going to be tackling the February Scrawlrbox challenge. Scrawlrbox is a monthly subscription box that drops through my door, and within that box every month they provide you with some inspiration and a prompt for the month. And with that prompt, the idea is that you use only the supplies that are in the box and you create a beautiful work of art. So that is what we're going to try and achieve. I will get together all the bits and pieces and show you what came in the box, just in case you missed it. If you do want to watch the original video of the unboxing, if you want to click on the card, I can't, is it this side or this side? Click on it and you can go back and watch that part, which is quite fun. Okay, so just a quick recap of everything that came in the February Scrawlrbox. We have one sheet of paper that is quite textured, and you can see that there if I sort of wiggle it about a bit. And the next thing we have is a Scrawlr Mars Lumograph aquarelle pencil in 4B, which we're going to use to do some sketching. We have the Faber-Castell Gold Faber aqua pencils, and there is a set of 12 here. And yeah, we've got a decent range of colours to work with, so that's going to be fun because I haven't used these yet either. We have the Faber-Castell water brush with the funny little tool on the end that's got the bit on it. Yeah, you can use that for scraping and doing fancy stuff, so we might try something with that. We have a Scrawlr Mars plastic eraser. I have kept this one in its wrapper because I have one already, and I'm not opening another one when I've already got one, but that's just to let you see what it looks like. We have the Scrawlr graphite pencil sharpener, which I have used to sharpen this pencil, and as you can see, it's pretty sharp, so that's all good in the wood. We have our Scrawlrbox sticker, that's just by the by. And lastly, we have the Scrawlr challenge, and the challenge this month is quiet morning. So let's see what we can do with this. The inspiration for the prompt was quite simple and straightforward for me, and it was an idea that came to me quite quickly. Because I stay in a rural area, I live on a farm, it is generally quite quiet first thing in the morning, and I am an early riser, so quite often I will take my cup of tea, which I drink a lot of, and I will sit in the colour cave and look out the window at the beautiful view from my desk. So that seemed really fitting to use for the challenge, and it was quite nice to be able to observe the view from an art point of view as opposed to just sitting and looking out the window. It made me notice a lot more things, even though I've probably looked out that window a million times. Not only is my colour cave the place where I do all my arty stuff, but I also spend quite a lot of my week working there and sitting at that desk with that view. So when I came to draw this picture, one of the first things I had to take into consideration was the pencil that came in the box that we've used for sketching is in fact water soluble. So anytime I add water to the paper, it's obviously going to react with the pencil. So I had to be very careful, and I tried to use a lighter hand just to give me the guidelines, and then try and fill in and change the guidelines to use the watercolour pencils. I have used the pencil to my advantage in some spots, as you can see here, just to get some shading on the window frame, just to give it a little bit of depth. I have to say I didn't have any problems with this interfering, so to speak, when switching between the coloured pencil and the sketching pencil. As long as you let the paint dry properly before you add another layer, I had no issues with bleeding or anything running into each other, so that was pretty good. So you can see here I'm just starting to work away now and starting to use the water pen, the water brush, and I have to say that I'm not all that fussed about it, to be perfectly honest. I'll always give an honest opinion on products and items that come to me, and there's actually nothing wrong with it, generally speaking. However, I just found the control of the water flow quite erratic. Again, I've said it before, I'm a big fan of the Kuretake water brushes, and it's those that I tend to favour. So maybe I'm just spoiled, I'm used to them. But when you squeeze the reservoir on the pen, the water seems to come gushing out at quite a rate, and there were points where I actually had to dab off water because the brush had been really dry, and I'd squeezed the barrel to try and, you know, encourage the water flow, and I ended up with big splodges and puddles of water on the paper. So that wasn't the best. Because of that as well, I ended up not using the tool on the end of the pen lid as well. I was wanting to try and incorporate that, but also not just the water flow in the brush, but the size of the areas that I'm working in didn't really give me much scope on this piece of paper to really effectively use the tool. I may make a video later on and try that out and see how we get on and if we can create any nice effects. So just penciling in the sky here, again trying to get the idea of a morning sky. So I've gone with the sort of magenta colour and the blue colour and just blending them in together. Now the pencils blend beautifully when you add water to them. They're absolutely fabulous, and you can also layer them up as long as you wait for the layer underneath to dry to intensify that colour and just make it stand out a little bit more. So that's really the basics of the tools that I was using. I did like the sketching pencil, and I may continue to use it and incorporate that ability to make it react with water in future pictures. I think it's something that creates quite a nice effect, and you can vary it quite considerably just by the amount of pressure you're actually using on the pencil. So you can see here now I'm moving on to adding a little bit of colour to the foreground. Outside of the window there are a selection of shrubs, and they change with the seasons, which is something I really enjoy actually about looking at this view, is just watching how the tree at the right hand side changes, and also what's going on in the fields directly across from my house. So it's really nice. Obviously this time of year it is February, so there's not so much going on, but I think that probably worked to my benefit when actually doing this picture. What I wanted to do here was to try and show where the light was hitting the plant pot, which obviously will cast a dark shadow facing in towards the room because the light is coming from the window. Obviously natural light from outside. I didn't have any lamps or anything on at the time, and I did try and draw the picture as I was actually sitting looking out, rather than just an impression of it. You know, I didn't sit and draw it at night or anything. I do prefer to work in natural light anyway, so it just seemed to make sense, and just I can keep things simple and keep things, nice and easy going forward. I haven't had a huge amount of experience with watercolours and watercolour pencils, although I do find that they are a lovely intermediate step if you're looking to try out watercolours, because you can do a lot with it and you can experiment with them. And 9 times out of 10 you'll get a nice effect. The other thing that's quite nice about this as well is there's a lovely balance of colour in the picture. The fact that my plant pot's yellow was quite nice just to add in that little pop of colour in the foreground, and that gave me the chance to just keep the picture nice and bright. But I was trying to capture the sort of peace and stillness, so I didn't want lots and lots of really bright colours. I did try and keep the rest of it quite pale and quite muted, just to try and preserve the feel of the piece. Despite only having a selection of 12 pencils to choose from, I did use multiple colours just to mix in before applying the water to give myself some different shades and tones. Again, thinking back to talking about keeping a sort of quite a muted picture to emanate the calmness, I did use the darker blue quite a lot to dull down and mute some of the brighter colours. You can see that shrub on the left hand side. The green is quite a pale minty colour, And I found that the darker blue pencil was really good just to sort of tone it down. I did also use the same technique on the leaves and on my plant as well, and you can see the blue just popping through there when I added the water to it, and it did give me some lovely depth. Again, that was quite useful when looking at casting the shadows on those leaves, and the side of the leaves that are facing out towards the window I've kept in the paler green. Now this is where the sketching pencil came into its own for me, and funnily enough where I was most comfortable when actually composing this picture. I tend to draw mostly in pencil, and it was absolutely lovely to be able to use this pencil to shade my clock that's sitting there. The clock itself in real life is chrome, so the aquarelle pencil was perfect to just put in those shadows and accentuate the highlights, and I had great fun using that, and that really just consolidated my thoughts on using the aquarelle pencil more often. Even just in my day-to-day sketches, it would be really nice to be able to add some water to those sketches, even if it was just in patches here and there, and really get that nice effect. And you can see that the shadows are quite deep, and you can get quite an intense shadow from them. So it was at this stage that I really began to like that pencil. Here, doing the hills away in the background, this was one of the areas where I already knew that I would have to layer up my colour. There are only 2 greens in the selection of pencils that came in the box, so in order to get the darker sort of shadow side of the hills, the sun comes up behind the hills, what I wanted to do was get that sort of paler green, which is more of a true green, down first and let it dry, knowing that I was going to go over it possibly with the darker green or maybe even some sort of brown to really sort of bring the shade right down, and really darken it so that it gave the effect that I wanted. And this is where the dribbling started. I mentioned earlier about having problems trying to control the water flow of the water brush, and as you can see I have a little bit of tissue paper beside me because this is where it started to go wrong. Thankfully it happened when I was working on that clock, which as I said before was actually the part I was most comfortable with because I was using a normal pencil in inverted commas. But yeah, I had to do a bit of mopping up at that point. I'm actually quite glad it happened there and not somewhere else because I think I probably panicked a little bit less than I would have done. I was like, oh no, my tree. But I got it sorted, and as you can see, there's no real lasting damage. Well, not obvious damage anyway, unless you pointed it out and you're looking for it. But hey, it's art. It's just a happy little mistake. Isn't that right, fans of Bob Ross? At this stage, I've really felt that this is where the picture was starting to come together and somewhat resemble the view outside the window, which was quite nice. So really, I'm just sort of working away now that the bulk and the structure of the picture is done, is really just going around the sort of fiddly finer details and putting some shadow into those shrubs and just finishing them off too. I did spend quite a bit of time debating what I was going to do with the section that I'm filling in now, which is the road that runs between the fields and the front of my garden. I didn't really know, I wanted to add some texture to the picture, so I decided just to use the sketching pencil in those sort of little circular motions to give the impression of stone, and just leave it at that. I was tempted to take the water brush to it, but decided against it, and I think overall it's quite nice because it just adds that little bit of different texture to the picture. Having added in most of the colour to the picture now, at this point I went back over my sky area because I just felt that the colour wasn't quite as intense, and I literally just added a little tickle of pink as I've just done there, and you can see the difference it's made just to that sort of sunrise idea coming up over the back. here we are finishing up now, coming to the end of the piece. I have to say I was quite pleased with the end result. It is quite a good likeness of the view out of my window, so I'm not complaining about that at all. I think it was a great experience and I really enjoyed using the materials, and I hope you guys like it too. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, and if you want to subscribe, you just click on the button.